It's Thursday once again. That means it's Legacy Discussion Day here at Brave New Coin. Let's talk about the usual suspects. The VIX, the Dixie, the X's and the Y's. So historically, volatility index, the VIX. If that's rising, we're bearish. If it's falling, we're bullish. And we had been doing pretty well since early 2020, since the pandemic highs of a VIX of whatever it hit, 80, some nonsense like that. It had been coming down below 20, below 16, even I think briefly, rising again slightly. In general, always better if we are declining on the VIX. If we're low, that generally represents risk on mentality. I'll move to gold. This is the 30-week rolling gold correlation. Probably close to the highest negative correlation we've had with gold, which maybe represents gold outflows, maybe represents BTC moving in a risk on versus risk off play. The thing about correlations is they're not necessarily bleeding, but when they look like this for the SPX and NASDAQ, I get definitely concerned because basically we're in lockstep with both of those. The weirdest one has been the Dixie, which we've basically negated the entire negative correlation there. I think in general, I feel very disconnected from what's going on BTC wise. It feels like there's a conversation happening and I don't understand any of the words. That's basically how I feel about BTC, especially relative to ETH. To see those two go in opposite directions is a bit weird. To see one stronger than the other is normal, but to see opposite directions is a bit weird. In any case, SPX, NASDAQ, still, this is close to 90, 100% basically. So to see what I'm seeing on these charts looks extremely concerning for rollover in BTC land. Should these roll over, which every week I say, this looks bad, this looks bad, this looks super overbought. You know, maybe eventually it's going to kick in. I don't want to be the doom or bear guy, but the technicals look extremely overbought on SPX and NASDAQ. Looking at Dixie individually, it's still got a bearish 5200 cross. It's still fact-finding below the 50. Ultimately, anything below 88, 89 should be massive new all-time highs for BTC, I think, regardless of correlation, because that'll represent some savage risk-on moves in macro land if the dollar hits multi-year lows relative to other currencies. You can see we hit that 200, got denied. If we look at it on the cloud in a different view, it still looks fine for bullish reversal into May, June, maybe into Q3, which is when crypto doesn't do so hot. I'm going to be saying this a lot, so I hope I'm right. But Wake Me Up When September Ends is not only a Green Day song, but it is a meme that correlates with Q3 seasonality, because historically Q3 is awful for crypto across the board. Probably because Q2 has always been great, Q1 has always been not so great, Q4 has been great. So this could be related to taxes, tax season, just ping-ponging back and forth as far as when people take profits and things like that. But that would be a good time for Dixie to break these highs, get some bullish momentum, I think, into Q3. Now, if we get another stimulus in the US, maybe not, but it's definitely something to consider. Gold still continues its journey inside of the cloud. And if you're not familiar with the cloud, how this works is if we're above the cloud, we're bullish. If we're below, we're bearish. And if we're inside of the cloud, traditionally that is a no trade zone, meaning it's neutral. However, you can take trades known as edge-to-edge moves from one end of the cloud to the other. So if you just look at this for the first time and it's in the middle of the cloud, there isn't really a trade there. But if you're convinced that there, in this case, is going to be a bearish reversal, what you're looking for is a continued bearish reversal, really. What you're looking for is a bearish TK cross, currently we have a bullish TK cross, with price close to the edge of the cloud, or as close as it can get before pulling down. So really the best short case, bearish TK cross plus price sort of near this yearly pivot. So it's hard to be super bullish gold seeing this. And in general, that may just represent risk on versus risk off type mentality. If gold is bearish, we're risk on. If gold is bullish, we're risk off. And if VIX is down, we are risk on. just things to keep in mind, I guess. In general, we've done better in cryptoverse if we're risk on. So definitely still watching this gold short trade. You know, metals act super slow. This is silver. Silver looks amazing compared to gold. Silver looks like it's ready for bullish continuation. Had this near perfect white coffee and accumulation down here, and it's ready for some sort of ascending triangle bullish continuation to 30, 34, something like that. But this definitely looks much more bullish than gold on the whole. And here's the big kahuna, SPX, and immediately seeing this TK disequilibrium. Again, if you're not familiar with the cloud, it's just very similar to MAs. When you see EMAs or MAs very wide apart, especially very spread above or below price, there's a suggestion, a gentle nudge that, hey, this is overbought. And the higher we go, it just continues. Hey, this is overbought. Hey, by the way, this is overbought. Hey, another week, we're still overbought. So until we either chill out up here, we go sideways, or we mean revert back to around 3,200, this will continue. In the cloud's case, it's represented as this TKC clamp. So if this gets flat, then you're in for trouble. So that's what I hope I don't see for SPX. What you want to see is the Kijun pull up. You want to see price go sideways a little bit, because otherwise it's spelling certain doom as far as mean reversion. You know, we're still bullish if we fall to the yearly pivot. You know, it's interesting how this stuff lines up. We're hitting resistance likely at the R1. We're going to find support at the yearly pivot, most likely if this pulls back. No bear div here yet, which is interesting. Definitely getting a higher high in price, but not a lower high in RSI. Different story for NASDAQ. NASDAQ definitely put in a higher high and put in a lower high in RSI. So there's a bearish divergence on the weekly there for NASDAQ plus this TKC clamp. And you can see it's wider than it's ever been really in the past probably 20 years. I mean, we look extremely overbought, and I like 10,000 as far as a pullback target if things get ugly. And if these both get ugly, VTC will get ugly. You know, I have no doubts in that. It's already getting pretty ugly as far as not moving. You know, it's been down and flat much longer than anticipated. So if this pulls back, both SPX and NASDAQ, it'll be a great catalyst for additional bearish momentum in Bitcoin land. If we look at Coinbase stock, which just got listed, first thing that reminded me of was Zcash. You know, this is the classic Zcash playbook of slow bleed. If you are bullish, this is not what you want to see on anything, because it had its accumulation / distribution, and it had some spikes down, and then it's just weak, selling. And until really what you want to see is a capitulation spike, you want to just see a spike in volume, a spike down in price, something like that. Right now it's sitting below, this is the 5-minute chart, right? So this isn't like some massive level, but it's sitting below the MAs, it's sitting below the volume, which is really the big thing. I even cut off the earlier prices, but you want to see that capitulation spike, and you want to see a bullish divergence, lower low in price, higher low in RSI. Not quite there yet. For coin, probably goes lower, probably a early marker for some of this other crypto stuff, which makes it even more bizarre to see ETH pull an all-time high earlier today. Again, it just feels extremely disconnected and worrisome that random stuff is moving sort of regardless of everything else. We had Doge a few days ago, obviously, but other stuff as well. Maker's up big. SafeMoon already crashed. You know, that was this cycle's BitConnect, I guess, but coin not looking bullish. MSTR also not looking so bullish. It's definitely in this range. I don't think this maps out to Wyckoff distribution, but you'd always have to check. If you just Google Wyckoff distribution, you'll see what I mean. This would be breaking the ice if that is the case, but you know, anytime you get a garbled mess like this, it's always good to just match that up against potential Wyckoff stuff, because this looked like, first it looked like an inverted head and shoulders, then it looked like an Adam and Eve, didn't break up, got denied. 200-day moving average is down here, not quite a bullish divergence yet on those lows, but at this point, you kind of expect it to break the lows, I think. So I like 520, 525, something like that down there. And the reason we're looking at these is because they hold BTC on their balance sheet. Tesla, another one, had this inverted head and shoulders that looked like it wanted to break up. Didn't quite reach its target. It looks more neutral than MSTR does for sure, but if this breaks down, it's headed to 420. Square actually looks probably the strongest of the three, and it has a decent support around 230, 235. Didn't quite hit its all-time high measured move target. So all these look less overbought than SPX and NASDAQ, certainly. And I think the big chart of this video is probably GBTC, which has a 20% discount to spot, roughly. It's at 43.3. Nobody's buying this thing anymore at this point. The only thing that can really save this is an ETF approval or ETF conversion, because you probably have more sellers than buyers looking at this discount. Eventually, though, someone's going to step in and say, okay, this is a pretty decent buy relative to spot. And there's some sort of like cash and carry / ARB to be had here. If you are longing this and short spot, you're arguably delta neutral, or however you want to think about that. So this had that ascending triangle like spot, definitely did not break up, broke down, and it does not look good in this chart specifically. ETH, on the other hand, is at all-time highs, parity slightly above spot. So definitely a difference there, and maybe this is why BTC hasn't moved. I don't know, I'm looking for answers here. I'm looking for mining related stuff. All this other news doesn't really make sense. It doesn't make sense. Maybe the 3 ETH ETFs in Canada that got approved are part of this, but I doubt it. Maybe the hash rate pulling off is a part of this for BTC, but I doubt it. Maybe the continued FUD about everything BTC related is part of this, but I doubt it. It feels like something's going on. I don't know what it is. and maybe this is it. So that's all I have for this one. Let me know what you think about the disconnect between ETH and BTC right now in the comments below. Like, dislike, share, subscribe. Happy trading.